All right, beautiful. Thank you for joining me for a Shakira-inspired 60-minute Hips Don't Lie Yin yoga class. My name is Holly. My pronouns are she, her. If you know me well, you know that my voice is a little bit hoarse right now. I have a cold. I've repeatedly tested negative for COVID, but one of the joys of teaching from home is I'm happy to be in community with all of you without being scared of giving you a cold. So I apologize if my voice goes out. I have my Kamala Harris I'm speaking mug, which I might be sipping tea from time to time. So today is a class that's all about hip tightness and working into our hips. It's a floor-based class. In yin yoga, we use slow, gentle postures, but we'll hold them for longer periods of time. So you're going to do a little bit less, but you're going to hold a little bit longer to work deep into connective tissue. Yoga can be a little uncomfortable maybe at times, and that's okay, but we're never going to a point of pain. One of the goals in the yoga practice is to really learn to trust ourselves, to trust our body, to trust what our body is telling us. So if at any point in class something is not speaking to you, you are welcome to do a modification, do something else entirely, or skip the posture that we're practicing and take an extra long savasana lying on your back or in another comfortable seated position, right? So this is your class and your time to make your body feel good and to bring your body and mind into harmony. But as a reminder, you are your greatest teacher. For this class, you will want a yoga mat or a carpeted area or both. And you don't need them, but you might want a pillow or two. You don't need any fancy yoga bolsters or blocks or anything, but you might want a pillow or two from around your house, but they're not necessary. A blanket could also do the trick. Great, that's my spiel. We're going to start in a comfortable seated position. You can sit crisscross applesauce. You can sit in Sukhasana easy pose with one foot in front of the other. Can also have your feet out in front of you. And if it feels good to have a little cushion underneath your bum, you are welcome to do that too. So your hips are a little bit higher than your knees. So there's lots of options throughout class. You can place your hands on your knees, palms facing down as a symbolic gesture that you're really rooted in your body and in this moment in your life. Or you can place your palms facing up as a symbolic gesture that you're open to whatever the next hour brings your way. We're just going to start with a few intentional breaths. You can close your eyes, or if closing your eyes feels distracting or a little unsafe, you can keep your eyes open about 1/10 and do a soft fuzzy gaze just beyond the tip of your nose. So you're still aware of your surroundings, but you're not focusing on one particular object in your periphery. Sit up nice and tall. Drop your shoulders, lift your chest, relax your face, and take a nice slow breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Inhale. This time, exhale just a little bit longer than you inhaled. Inhale through the nose. You can exhale through your nose or your mouth, just making the exhale a little longer than the inhale. Breathe in. And slowly empty out. Just continue with a few slow breaths, again, making the exhale a little bit longer than the inhale. When we start to focus on our breath, we give our mind a place to settle on. Focusing on the breath brings the mind and body a little bit closer in union. And particularly when we exhale a little bit longer than we inhale, we also activate the parasympathetic nervous system in the body, telling the body that there's no need to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And some of you may have heard of fight and flight, and more of you may have heard of fight, flight, or freeze. But the fourth nervous system response to danger is to fawn, as in if somebody says something mean to you, right, rather than running or fighting or freezing, you might instead try to be really gracious towards them or really nice, right? That's the fawn response, which is just as much of a trauma response as flight, fright, or freeze. And often I would actually argue that a lot of folks in yoga will do a fawn response. So for example, if a posture really isn't speaking to you, or a yoga teacher, tells you to do something with your body that doesn't feel good to you, rather than fighting it or freezing or running away, you might just say, oh, that's okay, you're a teacher, right? And in this class, I really want you, again, to honor yourself. So if I'm saying something that is not speaking to you, it is your body, it is your yoga practice, right? You are in charge. You can not listen to anything that I say in this class, right? You can do your own thing. And if ever your practice starts to run away from you, you can just return to this breath and remember that you're in control of your breath. Inhale and slowly exhale. Let's take 2 more intentional breaths. Breathe in and slowly empty out. Inhale. Exhale. Here you can seal your lips and return your breath to normal. I encourage you in general in yoga to breathe through the nose. It helps to oxygenate the body. But if ever there's a point where it just feels really good to take a long exhale or sigh everything out, you are also welcome to do that. If your eyes are closed, you can open your eyes, maybe roll your shoulders forward a few times, backward a few times, and then drop your shoulders. We're going to take our first yin yoga posture of the day, which is a long held child's pose. So we're going to come onto our knees. For this child's pose, I want you to have your big toes touching, and your knees can be, say, like a ruler a foot or so apart. So it's not a super open, wide-legged child's pose, but the knees aren't together. From here, you're going to start to sink your hips back and stretch your arms forward. Of note, depending on your body mobility, right, you might sink your hips to your heels or even your forehead to the floor. However, for a lot of us, hips to heels or forehead to floor, it feels kind of inaccessible. You are welcome to place pillows or blankets underneath your chest or head. You are also welcome to place pillows or blankets in between your calves and your thighs so that your hips can sink back a little bit more. And again, you don't need any fancy yoga bolsters or props, but a household pillow or blanket will do the trick for this. So we're going to start here. We're going to hold this for 5 minutes, and every minute we're going to do a slightly different upper body stretch. So for here, right, you can have your forehead towards the floor, reach your arms forward, stretching out the shoulders, sink your hips down. So we're just stretching out the spine at the beginning of class. If having your arms forward is too much on your shoulders, you can also bring your arms down by your side, palms facing up. This is called Fetal Pose, and it's a great option for folks with a shoulder injury. As you inhale through your nose, feel your ribs gently open and expand. And as you exhale through your nose, feel your ribs slowly close and contract. Breathe in. And slowly breathe out. From here, start to walk your hands to the right side of your mat or yoga space. You are welcome to have your hands side by side, or you can place your left hand on top of your right hand. Now we're gently stretching the left side body and squeezing the right side body. We're just waking up the spine at the beginning of class. Start to walk your hands back to the center of your mat. And now carefully walk your hands to the left side of your mat. You can have your hands side by side, or you can place your right hand on top of left hand. You might notice that this side feels different from the other side. We are not symmetrical. We're not butterflies. We're perfectly imperfect. Through yoga, we're given an opportunity maybe to observe some of our incongruencies, address some of our incongruencies, but we're also given an opportunity to, accept the fact that like, hey, one shoulder might always be tighter than the other, or one knee might always be tighter than the other, and that's okay, right? We don't have to be perfectly symmetrical to practice yoga, the same way that we don't have to be like perfectly zen and at peace to practice yoga, right? You can come onto your mat exactly as you are. All you have to do is breathe. Slowly walk your hands back to the center of your mat. From here, we can do a little shoulder opener called thread the needle. Keep your right arm long in front of you. You're going to take your left arm underneath your right arm. So your left arm comes to the right. You can have your forehead on the floor, or you can look a little to the right with your left ear towards the floor. You can, if you have a pillow under your chest, you can keep it there, or it might feel good at this point to remove the pillow, right? It's totally up to you. It's a nice little deltoid shoulder stretch. Even though we've been moving the upper body here every minute, the lower body might really start to be talking to you, right? We're stretching out through our toes, our ankles, our knees, our hips, as we really loosen the lower back and lengthen through the spine. Again, in yoga, a little bit of discomfort or uncomfortability, right, might pop up from time to time. But if you were ever in pain in a posture, or you're holding your breath, or you're going into that fawn response, right, trying to like people please or stay in a posture just to stay in it, that might be a really good opportunity to practice listening to your body, right? You can always come out of a posture early. You can adjust a little bit, grab a pillow, remove a pillow, but it is your practice and your body. Keep that in mind. If your left hand is slid under you and thread the needle, you're going to slowly unthread the needle, reach your left arm long overhead. This time, keep your left arm straight out in front of you and take your right arm underneath you, palm faces up. You can have forehead to floor or look to your left with your right ear on the floor. Breathe. Notice where you might be holding on to some tension in your body. See if you can relax into the posture rather than force it. Slow inhale. Slow exhale. Breathe in. Empty out. If your right arm is underneath you and thread the needle, slowly slide it out. You're going to reach your right arm forward, and one last time, reach the arms forward, sink the hips back, really stretching through the neck, the upper, middle, lower back, opening through the hips as you open your shoulders. Take a big inhale through your nose. If it feels good, sigh it out. You can open your mouth and exhale. Now, when we hold postures for long periods of time, we want to come out of them slowly with control. You're going to slowly start to lift your head, look forward, and at your own pace, almost like a little sloth here, walk your hands in towards your knees. Take your time. Slowly press yourself up. There's no rush. Oh. Once you're up, you can do a little counter stretch if it feels good. Maybe take your hands behind you, do a little back bend. Good. Coming into a neutral spine position. If you have any pillows underneath you, remove them. And we're actually going to lie on our abdomen for our first little relaxation of the day. Now, if lying on your abdomen does not feel good to you, keep in mind that you are welcome to lie on your back. If you do want to lie on your abdomen, you can bend your arms so that your elbows are out, hands are in. You can bring your forehead to the floor, or you can look to one side so one ear is on your mat. It's a nice little gentle neck and shoulder stretch. You can also take your arms down by your side, palms facing up for an even deeper shoulder stretch. As we release into a more spine neutral position, you might start to notice some sensations in your body. maybe a temperature change in your feet, right? As more blood rushes towards your feet, or maybe even a little bit of an ache in your hips as you come out of that long-held child's pose. And part of yoga is just observing our experience in our body without assigning judgment. So try to just observe anything that's coming up for you without immediately jumping to conclusions like good or bad, right or wrong, just noticing what's happening. If you are on your abdomen and you're looking to one side, you can gently lift your head and look to the other side, other ear on your mat. Next, we're going to do a back bend called Sphinx Pose. This is a posture on the abdomen. I will model it, and then I will give an alternative if lying on your abdomen is not for you today, right? That's perfectly fine. Otherwise, we're all going to meet on our abdomen. You're going to lift your head, bend your arms so that your elbows are about hip width, shoulder width distance with your hands in front of you. You can have your elbows directly under your knees. You can also have your arms more forward to ease up on the back bend. You are also welcome, if lying on your stomach feels a little bit uncomfortable, you're welcome to place a pillow underneath your thighs so that you're still in the back bend, but your stomach hangs off of the pillow, right? And that's a great way to take pressure off of the abdomen. Now from here in our Sphinx pose, we are going to add a hip opener today because this is a hips don't lie class, and it's called half frog. So again, if you are in Sphinx pose, you're going to start to bend your left knee out to the left. Eventually, knee in line with your hip, ankle in line with your knee. So it's a 90-degree angle. However, you can make that angle a little bit less intense, bringing the knee and the foot back towards the back of your mat. You can also place a pillow underneath your hip or underneath your knee so that there's more support there. Now, if Sphinx pose, half frog pose, right, this is not good for you lying on your stomach, you can lie on your back with a pillow or pillows underneath your lower back. And then you're simply going to bend one knee out to the side. So again, maybe hip and knee in line, knee and ankle in line, or maybe bring that foot back a little bit. So you're still getting a hip opener and a back bend. You're just on your back rather than your front. So in yoga in general, right, there's always modifications and variations of postures that can help us get the spirit of the posture. For example, in this one, it's a back bend and a hip opener. But remember that our bodies are all different. Our experiences are all different. So I will try to offer as many modifications as variations as possible, not to overwhelm you, but just to give everyone an opportunity to feel this little healing compression to the spine and opening to the hip. We're going to hold here for another minute. Notice if your shoulders are starting to sink into your ears. Can you lift your chest and neck up a little bit? Keep the shoulders out of the ears. And then notice where you might be holding on to tension in your body. Can you relax your hips a little bit more? Maybe soften through the pelvic floor. Keep your neck long, jaw relaxed, breathe. If your knee is bent in the half frog variation, you're going to slowly slide your left leg long so that both legs are straight, and then slowly bend your elbows out, coming down onto the floor. Again, you can have your forehead on the floor or look to one side, and just let your shoulders relax for a moment. Especially in a world where we tend to hunch forward a lot during the day, Back bends like Sphinx pose are so healing to our spine. They're also a great way to stretch and release through the chest and shoulders. However, right, if you like me tend to have the shoulders creep up into the ears, it's important to take a little break here so the shoulders can soften. Okay, we're going to do the other side. Gently lift your head, coming back into your Sphinx pose. Again, you can have your elbows under your shoulders or your arms a little forward. We're going to do the other side of half frog. This time, bend your right knee or the other leg if you did the other one out to the right. Again, you might notice that this side is different or requires different props. You can have your knee in line with your hip and your ankle in line with your knee. You can also lengthen that right leg back more. And again, if having a pillow underneath your hip, your thighs, your knee is helpful, you are welcome to do that. Holding here for one more minute, keep the shoulders out of the ears. We're stretching the fascia on the chest. If you don't know what fascia is, you've maybe heard of like plantar fasciitis on your foot. It's the most commonly heard of example of fascia. So fascia is the substance that covers our entire body. It's actually our second largest organ after skin, and it kind of keeps everything in place so that things don't float out of place. And when it's tight, it can tear, right? So when we do gentle stretches like this, for example, stretching the fascia on the chest slowly and gently, we prevent that tear, right? Because it's a little bit more malleable and supple. Okay, if your right knee is bent in frog, you're going to slowly lengthen that right leg back and then return your head to the floor. You can have your elbows out. And if you're looking to one side, look to the other side, other ear on your mat, breathe. So we've done half frog. Now we can all attempt full frog, which is admittedly not my favorite posture, so I don't teach it that often, but it is a really good hip opener. So you're going to put your hands on the floor and press yourself up. We can all try it together. And remember, it's just for fun. You're going to come into a tabletop position, and then you're going to start to open up your knees and your feet. So again, you in general want to keep your ankles and knees in line. You can have your toes out. If you have tight knees, you're welcome to place extra pillows or blankets underneath your knees. And over time, you're going to open your hips more and maybe even come down onto your forearms. Keep the shoulders out of the ears. We're only going to be here for 1 minute. Again, I don't teach this posture that often because I don't personally love it, but it is a good hip opener. It's also good for people that menstruate, right? It's good for blood flow. And if you've ever wanted to do the side splits, this is a good place to start. I don't know, sometimes people as adults have like a fun goal, like I want to do the splits one day, right? Or I want to do the side splits. So yoga can help us into those like fun adult goals, like handstands. We'll take 3 more slow breaths here, shoulders out of the ears. If you have your forearms on the floor, slowly place your hands on the floor, lift yourself up, slowly slide your knees, feet together. There is no rush. You can do any sort of counter stretch that feels good. And then we're going to make our way onto our backs and lie on your back. So one thing that I appreciate about yin yoga is that it sometimes has different names for postures. So as we lie on our back, You are welcome to have your arms and legs long, head on the floor. Many styles of yoga refer to this as Shavasana or corpse pose or dead body pose, which, gets the point across, but is a little macabre. In yin yoga, it's referred to as puddle pose, like a rain puddle. And the idea is you can just have your body be like a rain puddle. So you can open your arms and legs a little bit more if that feels good. If lying on your back with your legs straight does not feel good to your lower back, that is really normal. Couple options. You can place a blanket or pillow under your lower lumbar spine, or you can bend your knees, putting your feet on the floor about hip width distance, and let your knees rest together. And that will also let the lower back stretch out. Sometimes the release from a posture can be as intense as the posture itself. For those of you that get my newsletter every week, right? This week I talked about how we store emotion in our body, and in particular, how we can store emotion like in our hips and our shoulders and our chest. So especially in this class or anytime you're doing a hip opener, if you feel a sudden urge to like giggle or laugh or cry or yell or just like sigh really loudly, that is totally fine. Again, one of the joys of Zoom yoga is like, no one's there to hear you, so let it out as much as you want, right? And I'll go over that a little bit more later about, how and why we store emotion in our body and how yoga can help us release that tension in the body. Next, we're going to do another hip opener, surprise, called Supine Figure 4. You're going to start by bending your knees so that your feet are on the floor about hip width distance if they're not already. Keep your left foot on the floor. Lift your right foot off the floor and cross your right ankle over your left thigh so that if you look down the center line of your body, your legs make a 4 shape. That's why it's called Supine Figure 4, not very creative. Option to keep your left foot on the floor, or you can lift your left foot off the floor and start to hug your thighs in towards your abdomen. You're welcome to have your hands down by your side. You can place your hands outside of your thighs, or you can take your right hand in between your legs and then interlace both hands behind your left thigh and pull down. Keep your 2 shoulders and hips on the floor. Head on the floor. Gently look down the center line of your body. In this posture, we're stretching out the lower back. We're also stretching out our hip and our side seat. This is a great posture for sciatica. If you or someone you know has ever experienced sciatic nerve pain, right? This is your posture. So the sciatic nerve is the longest nerve in our body. It goes from our lower back all the way into our foot. And, sometimes in extreme cases, you'll hear of people who have like really bad outer thigh and knee pain. And it's actually because lower lumbar discs are pinching that sciatic nerve that runs down the leg. And this is a reminder to me of sometimes if I feel pain in my knee, it's actually because there's like something wrong with my hip. Or if I feel, like numbness in my hand, it might be a pinched nerve in my elbow, right? So often if we feel pain in a certain part of our body, it could be simply that, right? Like a bruise on the knee, or it could be something relating to another part of the body. Yoga is a holistic approach where we work all different parts of the body so that we can start to connect dots between, let's say, shoulder tightness and hip mobility, right? Or pinky toe numbness and lower back pain. Those are just some examples. We're going to hold here for another minute. In yin yoga, we hold postures for up to like 5 or even 10 minutes. We are going to hold some sort of a hip side seat opener for a total of 5 minutes. You are welcome to stay in supine figure 4 the whole time. Or I will offer another posture that's another version of this hip opener. In other styles of yoga, it's called Pigeon Pose. You might have practiced it before. In Yin Yoga, it is called Swan Pose. Again, Yin Yoga with the cute names. So you're welcome to stay here in figure 4, or if you'd like to try Pigeon/Swan Pose with me, you can slowly release any grip on the backs of your leg. No rush. Slowly return your left foot to the floor. Right foot to the floor. Then you're going to roll off to one side. This is a moving meditation. Take your time. Slowly press yourself up. Good. And we're going to come into another tabletop position. You want your wrists under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. Start to slide your right knee towards your right wrist. Bring your right foot to the left. Slowly slide your left foot back, lengthening the back leg. Look back. You want your ankle, knee, and hip in line. So the foot's not way to the left or way to the right. From here, right, you could sink your hip all the way down. You can also place blankets or pillows underneath your thighs and hips so that there's extra padding there. You can have your right ankle towards your left hip, or you can have your right ankle in line with your shin so that your shin is perpendicular to your mat. Either are wonderful. From here, you can keep your hands on the floor in a little proud swan position here with a back bend, or you can fold forward, keeping the shoulders out of the ears. And we're going to hold here for 2 more minutes. Swan pose is, again, a really good side seat stretch. It's good for sciatic nerve pain, but it's not accessible to everyone, and that's okay, right? That's why we have supine figure 4. If swan pose is not speaking to you today, like this is cringy, painful, it doesn't feel good, go back into your figure 4 pose. And just remember, if you practice that for a while, swan pose will start to become more accessible over time. So part of the way that this class in particular is structured is that we're doing little components of each posture that can build up to the whole shebang, right? But a little bit goes a long way. Particularly in Yin Yoga, when we're holding postures, for up to 5 minutes here in this class, you want to do about 70% of what you think you should be doing. And if you are like a type A go-getter, do like 60% of what you think you should be doing. If we were holding postures for 30 seconds or a minute, I may tell you to go right to your deepest point. But because we're holding postures for longer, we want to do a little bit less, but we'll actually end up getting a deeper stretch, right? Working not just into muscles, but into joints, into tendons, ligaments, connective tissue. The other fun thing about Swan Pose is that it's a great way to onboard the splits. So again, if like, I don't know, a fun adult life goal of yours is to do the splits in the final 30 seconds, if you'd like, you can come up and start to straighten your front leg, and then eventually you can come down into the splits. Again, you don't have to do this, but if you, I don't know, for whatever reason as an adult, you think the splits are fun, this is a great way to try that at the end of class. Shoulders down, chest up, wherever you are. Inhale through the nose. If it feels good, open your mouth. Let it go through the exhale breath. If you are in the splits, you're going to slowly bend that right knee back into your swan pose. You're going to press your hands into the floor. Slowly lift your hips up. You can remove any pillow you have. Slowly slide your right knee back into tabletop. And again, any counter stretch that you want to do, moving the hips right and left, you're welcome to do so. Then we're going to turn and lie on our back. If you are in supine figure 4, right, you can release any grip you have on the back of your leg and slowly bring one and then both feet back onto the ground. For your puddle pose, remember that you can keep your legs straight. You can bend your legs, letting your knees rest together, or you can place a pillow or blanket underneath your lower lumbar spine for extra support. So the first time I heard a teacher say, like, we store emotion in our hips, I like rolled my eyes and I was like, what does that mean? That doesn't make sense. So I'll explain a little bit of what it means. If you are, let's say, having a bad day and your boss yells at you, what do, right? You like hunch forward, you tense the front of your body. Biologically, this is a thousands of year long response that says like, if a bear is running after you, what do? You might run, right? You might fight, or if you freeze, right, you roll up into a little ball, you protect the front of your body where our organs and goods lie. So even in modern day, when we don't hopefully have a bear running after us, we still have that same response to protect the front of our body by hunching up. And this also happens in the winter, right? We're cold. What do? We hunch forward to keep our internal organs warm, right? There's a lot of responses where we hunch forward to protect the front of our body and keep, the good vital stuff nice and warm, nice and protected. But over time, if we don't do counter stretches to this, it can build up so that then we store some tension in our hips and in our shoulders. Let's do the other side of supine figure 4. Bend your knees so your feet are on the floor if they're not already. Keep your right foot on the floor. This time, cross your left ankle over your right thigh. Option to keep your right foot on the floor or lift your right foot off the floor, hugging your thighs in towards your abdomen. Option to keep your hands on the floor. You can also grab the outsides of your thighs or bring your left hand in between your legs and interlace your fingers behind your right thigh. Try to keep your head, your shoulders, and your hips on the floor. Now, particularly in the West, we've acknowledged that, if we have an external stimuli that is not pleasant, whether it's a bear running after us or, a friend picking a fight with us, we tend to hunch forward, right? We have an automatic nervous system response to hunch forward and protect the front of our body. What Eastern medicine has long suggested that Western medicine is really just picking up on is the fact that this is actually a two-way road. And if you're interested in reading books about this, I encourage you to read The Body Keeps the Score, which has a whole chapter about yoga. There's a book called Burnout. There's a book called My Grandmother's Hands. These are all books that deal with different facets of how trauma and emotion are stored in our body. Which again, when I first heard that like 15 years ago, when a yoga teacher told me we store emotion in our hips, I rolled my eyes and was like, what does that mean? But Western medicine is catching up to yogic philosophy, which is that we have a mind-body connection. If when we get emotional or cold, we hunch forward, then by extension, if we open the front of our body intentionally with breath, especially a slow breath that brings the body into the parasympathetic nervous system response, reminding the body that there's no need to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, then we can start to release that emotion and tension. In the book Burnout, for example, it suggests that when we don't take time to move through our feelings, when we don't take time to do embodied things like hip openers and shoulder and chest openers, eventually over time, this is what leads to burnout, right? Which is like a pretty common sensation, especially in the last 2 years, is to feel burnt out. So when we do hip openers, like what we're doing here, yes, we're releasing tension from the lower body, but we're also kind of embodied somatically processing some stuff that our body might have held on to. The same way that we have muscle memory, we also have emotional memory that is stored in our body. And these hip openers can sometimes bring out some of those memories or some of that emotion, right? Not necessarily. Sometimes we do a hip opener and don't feel much at all. But sometimes, again, we might feel the urge to cry or laugh or groan, or even a little bit of numbness. And these are all normal, right? It's just your body reprocessing some stuff that it's held on to. And yoga is such a safe space to process this. You have an option to stay in your figure 4, or you can slowly release any grip you have from the back of your leg. Bring your right foot to the floor, left foot to the floor, and mindfully roll off to one side, maybe the side you haven't rolled off to yet. Carefully press yourself up. Good. And we're going to come onto all fours. and do our other side of pigeon swan pose if you want, right? You can also stay in figure 4. Start to slide your left knee towards your left wrist. Bring your right foot to the left. Lengthen your right leg back. Look back. Make sure your ankle, knee, and hip are in line so your leg isn't way to one side. Again, you are welcome to place pillows or blankets underneath your hip for extra support. From here, you can do a proud swan with a little back bend, or you can fold forward coming down. Keep the shoulders out of the ears. We'll hold here for 2 more minutes. A minute in, notice where you might be forcing or fighting the posture. See if you can melt into your breath, sink into your mat. Let the floor hold you up. If what you're doing is unpleasant and not kind to your body, remember that you can go back into your figure 4, or you can try swan pose if you're still in figure 4, right? But you're honoring your body where it is, what you need to do. In the final 30 seconds, if you would like to try the splits, you can lift your chest up, lift your hips slightly, slowly slide your left foot forward, making the left leg long, and eventually sink your hips down, getting a nice little hamstring calf stretch here. Again, inhale through your nose. Anything you'd like to let go of, this is your opportunity. Let it go through the exhale breath. If you are in the splits, you're going to slowly lift your hips and slide your left ankle back towards your right hip. If you are in swan pose, you're going to slowly lift your hips. Remove any pillows you might have underneath you, sliding your left knee back. Again, you can make any movements with your body here that feel good. And then we're going to turn and lie back on our backs, back into your puddle pose, taking whatever shape of puddle pose feels good. And again, the release from a posture can be as therapeutic or as intense as the posture itself. Give yourself permission to feel whatever it is you're feeling. Sometimes in yoga, we get really big emotions, right? Like crying or laughing. Sometimes they're more subtle, and subtlety is really beautiful as well. So whatever you're feeling or not feeling, it is very much valid here. I often get students who ask, is it normal that I cry in yoga? And I say, of course, all the time. Get that question at least once a month. And sometimes I also get students who are like, that posture that you say everybody cries in, I don't feel much. Is that normal? And I'm like, of course. I also get that question once a month. This is all about just observing who we are in time and space, and really accepting ourselves and love on yourself here, right? Bend your knees if they're not already. Take a moment here, just letting your knees rest together. You can windshield wiper your legs, right, left, back, forth. Getting a nice little spine twist here, working out the lower back. Good. Come back to the center, knees, feet together. Lift your feet off the floor. Place your hands on your shins, your knees. Give yourself a nice little hug, and then roll right and left, just rolling out the back. Good. Stop in the middle. We're going to do happy baby. Open your knees and feet. Flex your toes back and gently bring your feet up towards the ceiling. Lots of options. You can grab the backs of your hamstrings. You can grab your knees. You can grab the outsides of your feet, elbows inside. You could also maybe have your hands on the floor, right? And just let the knees bend or even straighten the legs here. So there's lots of options for the arms. From here, you're just going to press the knees to the outsides of your ribs towards the floor. It's a great little hip opener. Again, good for people that menstruate. We're going to hold here for 2 minutes. Without lifting your head, tuck your chin in ever so slightly, like very subtly, so that the back of your neck gets a little longer. Keep your 2 shoulders and hips on the floor. And remember that because we're holding this posture for a while, you do not need to like pull down into the deepest hip opener of all time. So for example, if having your hands on your feet is a little too intense, you can release that grip and grab your legs or just have your hands on the floor, right? A little bit goes a long way. Notice where you might be forcing or fighting the posture or holding on to some tension. Sink into your breath. Melt into your mat. Let go of any preconceived notions of what the posture should look like or what you should feel like, and just let it be what it is. You have an option to stay here in happy baby. You can also try another version of this hip opener, which is commonly referred to as a yoga squat. Slowly start to loosen a grip on your feet or the backs of your legs. You can place your hands outside of your knees, thighs, and slowly bring your knees, feet together. Hug your thighs in towards your abdomen and roll off to one side. No rush. Slowly put your hands on the floor and press yourself up. Good. We're going to come back onto our tabletop position. And this time, you're going to tuck your toes under and start to sink your hips back, walk your hands in, and slowly lift your knees off the floor. Now from here, I'm going to show you from the front. It's really important that you turn your toes out and your heels in. And you're just going to, on the balls of your feet, move your hips, be right and left. Right, just getting some motion in the hips here. Shoulders out of the ears. I have to remind myself of that all the time. Option to stay here with your heels off the floor, hands on the floor in front of you, or we can take this into Malasana Garland pose. Start to bring your heels down to the floor. You might try taking a wider step. Body proportion changes what postures look like. So I have narrow hips, so having my heels close together helps me get my heels down. For you, you might have a much bigger step, right? So if your heels are not coming down, that's really normal. You might try taking a bigger step. That might make it more accessible to you. It actually makes it harder for me, right? Different body proportions are different. Some other options, you can place pillows underneath your heels so that you can feel what it feels like to have your heels rest down, even if they're not quite there yet. You can also place pillows underneath your butt. You're welcome to have your hands at heart center, and you can even press your knees out. And if Garland pose, again, what's often referred to as a yoga squat, is not speaking to you, that's okay. Go back into your child's pose, right? And the same, or pardon me, go back into your happy baby pose. The same way that, figure 4 is a great onboard for Swan Pose, and Swan Pose is a great onboard for the splits. Happy baby pose is a great way to onboard this Malasana yoga squat. Drop the shoulders, lift the chest. We're going to hold here for a little less than 2 minutes. Notice if you're giving any judgment to yourself about what shape you're choosing to take today. Whatever shape you're taking, whether it is Garland pose, whether it is, keeping your hands forward and your heels off the floor, whether it's happy baby, be really proud of yourself for making that choice for yourself, right? So much of yoga, particularly if you are also a woman, as I identify with she, her pronouns, particularly in yoga, one thing that we're gifting ourselves is the gift of like reclaiming our body and reclaiming our choices with our body. I think that is a really important part of yoga practice, right? That my posture does not have to look like your posture. The shape I'm making does not have to be the same shape as yours. I'm in a society that often tells us, what we should look like and what we should do. Yoga is very subversive. At least it can be, right? As far as reclaiming your body, reclaiming control over your choices. So whatever shape you're taking, even if that's just like a puddle pose, a savasana, be really proud that that is the decision that you have made for yourself, and nobody can take that choice away from you. Holding here for 30 more seconds. Take an inhale through your nose. Anything you would like to let go of, let it go through the exhale breath. If you are in your yoga squats, put your hands on the floor in front of you, lift your heels, slowly come forward back onto your knees. Take any little, I don't know if you could hear my hips cracking a little bit there. You take any motion that feels good with your body, and then turn, lie on your back into your puddle pose. If you are in happy baby, slowly remove any grip that you have from your feet or the backs of your legs. Place your hands outside of your knees. Bring your knees together, thighs in towards your abdomen, and then slowly release your arms and legs down into your puddle pose. And just observe any sensations occurring in body, mind, spirit, or all of the above. We've done a lot of external hip work. Our final asanas of the day are, spine twists, one on each side, but with a little bit of an internal hip rotation with it as well. So you're going to bend both of your knees. Your feet are on the floor if they're not already. Keep your left foot on the floor and cross your right leg over your left leg. Option to keep your right leg crossed over your right leg, or you can try eagle leg and wrap your right foot behind your left ankle. So again, you could try wrapping your right foot behind your left ankle, or for some folks, just having the right foot out to the left is a really good place to be. From here, take your arms out to the side in a big expansive gesture. You can have your arms perpendicular to your body, or you can bend your arms, cactusing them like goalposts. And you're going to start to roll to the left so that your right hip stacks on top of your left hip. Try to keep your right shoulder down on the floor. You are welcome to place pillows underneath your knees or under your right shoulder if that feels good. You can keep the back of your head on the floor, or you can look to the right, looking in the opposite direction of your knees. So again, with the right leg crossed over the left leg, it's a gentle, very subtle internal hip rotation. If the right ankle is crossed under the left ankle, it's also more of a knee and ankle stretch, which could feel really good. Or if it doesn't feel good, don't do it, right? And if it's not accessible, that's okay. That's really normal. At the same time, we're opening through our chest. We are twisting our spine and our abdomen. This posture is good for digestion, especially during seasonal transitions. In DC, it was 80 degrees, then it was 40 degrees, then it's 50, and tomorrow it's supposed to be 70. Sometimes our stomachs get really confused during seasonal transitions. So a gentle little spine twist to the abdomen is a nice way to kind of reset both your back and your tummy. Holding here for 1 more minute. If you are looking over your right shoulder with your right ear towards the floor, slowly roll your head back to center. Press your left shoulder into the floor, roll your right hip back to center. If your right ankle is crossed under your left ankle, uncross. If your right knee is crossed over your left knee, uncross. Right foot to the floor. We're going to go into the other side. Lift your left foot off the floor. Cross your left knee over right knee. Option to stay here or wrap your left ankle behind your right ankle. This side might feel different. From here, roll to the right. Try to keep your left shoulder on the floor. And again, you are welcome to place a pillow under your shoulder or under your knees if that helps you to relax a little bit more. You can keep the back of your head on the floor, or you can look over your left shoulder, left ear towards the floor. This is our final asana. Every exhale, let the body get a little heavier, a little more relaxed, a little more at ease. Often when we're feeling stressed out, we try to rationalize our way out of it, right? So if my body is tense, if I'm clenching my fists and hunching forward, I'll often use my brain to say, don't worry, body, like it's okay, you know you're safe. And this is helpful up to a certain extent. But what we forget sometimes, again, is that this is a two-way road. And sometimes when we really just relax the body and the breath, then the mind starts to follow suit. So rather than the body leading the, rather than the brain leading the body leads the brain. And through yoga, we realize that when we integrate mind and body through movement and through breath, everything can kind of relax all at once. It doesn't fix everything in our world, but things become just a little bit more manageable. If you're looking to the left, gently roll your head back to center. Press your right shoulder into the floor and roll your left hip back down to the floor. If your left ankle is crossed under right ankle, uncross ankle. If your left leg is crossed over right leg, uncross leg. You can take your arms down by your side, and for your final puddle pose, you're welcome to keep your knees bent with your feet on the floor, or you can straighten your legs, right? If you have a blanket that you'd like to place over your body, or a pillow that you want under your head or your knees, you're welcome to do so. Get as comfortable as you want. For those of us that come from 26-2 style yoga, which is a pretty austere style of yoga, like you just have your yoga mat and that's it. I know I sometimes feel personal resistance towards like a blanket over the body. That's so luxurious, right? I could never. But again, like this yoga class is your opportunity to really love on yourself and be kind to yourself. You can close your eyes, open your arms and legs as much as you'd like. Take a nice slow inhale through the nose. And an even slower exhale, it can be through the nose or the mouth. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale. Slowly exhale. Breathe in. And empty out. This is a gift that you have given yourself, a gift of somatic healing, a gift of embodied movement, a gift of really observed breath. This is a gift that you have given yourself, and no one can take it away from you. Inhale and exhale. You are so very loved. You are so very loved, and you are so very alive. You can stay in your final Savasana for as long as you'd like. When you do choose to get up, I encourage you to sit up for a while before you stand up, especially if you have low blood pressure, right? We've been on the floor for a while. The same way that if you've ever had a professional massage, they give you water afterwards to flush everything out. We really did work into not just muscles, but joints, connective tissue in this class. So please make sure that you're drinking a lot of water throughout the rest of this evening to rehydrate and kind of flush everything out that's coming out of the body. If you have any questions, my name is Holly. You can reach me at hollyhancockyoga@gmail.com or hollyhancockyoga.com. It is a joy to practice with you, friends. Hope to see you soon. Bye.